Okay, everybody, it's 2 minutes after the top of the hour. We're going to get started here. Thank you so much, everybody, again, for joining us on the last day of our 2014 Information Security Summer Festival webinar series sponsored by iSecure. It's just been a fantastic week for us internally here, and from the feedback that I've gotten from a majority of you, it seems like it's been a very beneficial week for folks that have joined in. This is the only webinar today. There's not a 2 o'clock webinar. This is the only one, and this is kind of our way of tying everything together and kind of explain to folks that aren't familiar with iSecure kind of what we do and our talents that we have here. Today's presentation, there was a change in it, but it's Defense in Depth, and it's an information security framework discussion led by our Chief Security Officer, Chief Technology Officer, Kevin Wilkins. And I've had the personal privilege of working with Kevin for the last 5 years and have learned a ton of stuff from him. Not only from a product perspective, but just from a security perspective. He's taught CISSP classes that I've sat in, and has really helped me along the way of understanding the holistic view of information security. So you're going to be getting a short sample of that today from him. And again, thank you so much to my staff internally here for making this a very successful webinar week, and a special thanks to you guys as well for joining. I see a lot of names, familiar names on the roster here that have been to every webinar, and we just greatly appreciate that. And I'll tie it up a little bit more later, but just wanted to start this off by thanking everybody for what they have brought to the table for this webinar series. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to the brains behind the security operations over here at iSecure, Kevin Wilkins, for his discussion. Kevin?
All right, thanks, Paul. Hey, guys, this is Kevin Wilkins, and Paul, if there's audio issues here, give me a shout and I'll switch over. But just wanted to say hello and welcome to the last session. It's been a long week, but a fun week, I hope. And you'll have to excuse me as well. I've got a little bit of a cold here, so the guy you're supposed to have didn't make it, and I might not, but we'll see how we go. So I'm going to move ahead here. This is Defense in Depth. It's an information security framework, and I know we've been talking a lot about various vendors and technologies through the whole week, but I wanted to talk a little bit about process and procedure, and tying it all together into something that is actually functional as a security program, as opposed to relying on a lot of independent point sources. Now, this really should be 2 presentations, so I've kind of smashed a couple of things together. I'm going to talk about the policies and procedures first, and then reference a few, various point defenses and technical controls later, and we'll plow through these. So a little bit about myself. I've been working in the IT industry operations, doing servers and routers and networks and voice over IP for about 15 years, and over the past 4 or 5 years, really taking a focus on information security, completing a CISSP course, learning about all the confidentiality, integrity, and availability stuff that they tell you on page 1 all the way through page 500 and plus. But it's a lot of fun, and it was a good way to take a turn in terms of what I do. Here's the itinerary, some quick concepts, an example of where a lot of people are starting with minimal security, Defense in Depth, and the information security framework, then some policies, procedures, technical controls, and if we have time, some questions and answers. So, basic concept is every organization should have a strategy that goes beyond a firewall and antivirus. And like I said, some administrative and technical controls will contribute to this. So here's where a lot of people are starting. You have users, you might have an Active Directory and a file server, a switch, a firewall, and maybe not much else. This depends on the size of your organization. Obviously, a large organization will be much more built out than that, but this is a good place to start. So what is an information security framework? Well, it's a formal process for identifying the threat vectors that you might see, what mitigations are available, and what tasks need to take place to ensure that your security is functional. And these things together contribute to a program of governance, risk, and compliance management. So let's talk about security a little bit more. Management is very important, and information security is a business function. Without establishment of oversight, your business interests aren't being protected, and that's what information security is really about. Everyone runs on information all the time. You know, depending on what kind of organization you are, you know, the idea isn't necessarily someone coming into your jewelry store, smashing open the display case, and running away with some diamonds. It's you know, all the information and data you process, whether it's critical for your strategy, design plans, you know, proprietary information, or whether it's your customers' information, which is the thing that makes the news when someone breaks into a organization and rips a lot of financial data or a lot of personal information. And of course, there's the financial side of it too, people slicing into accounting departments and transferring large amounts of money to somewhere else. So you need to assess these risks, prioritize what controls you're going to be using, and then use those to feed your information security budget. So is there a senior level manager tasked with information security? It's critical. So, like we said, organize state goals and identify what pieces are going to fit together into your information security framework. And here's a very basic diagram. This is where you start. Start from the beginning. It's green. Let's start there. Let's identify some threats and countermeasures, and let's state what our goals are for compliance. Is it an internal compliance goal, in that you just want to have a framework that you are confident in? Are you going to use a model from, say, SANS or PCI, or is it actually going to be driven by regulation and contract? So regulation might be HIPAA for healthcare. Contractual might be PCI for someone who's running credit card transactions. So policies and procedures, we're going to start there. These are very easy to develop. At least they don't cost anything. You don't have to buy them. If you've got you know, qualified people in your information security department or even in your IT operations department, you should be able to put some of these things together. Again, it helps plan for your budgets. It ensures you have a methodology to ensure that the critical tasks are being done. And it defines auditing and criteria to make sure that these tasks are completed and completed properly. At the top, master governance and audit policies. This is basically just what defines a framework. It says we're going to follow the specific compliance goals. We want to achieve a certain thing by the end of the year. We're going to define a number of policies and procedures that are going to follow on as part of this program. So this policy basically lists the goals of the sub-policies that define how the IT and information security operations proceed. Another good thing to have in this master governance and audit policy is a definition of a schedule to review the policies, including the master policy, just to make sure that you're keeping up with what you know works and what doesn't work, and if there are new innovations or threat factors that are appearing or changes in your business model, that this is a living document. Not to say it's a chaotic document, but it does have the ability to adapt. So building on the diagram you saw a couple minutes before, let's add the definition of some specific policies. Now we're going to go through some examples of some of the procedures and policies that you can add onto the master policy. These are just some important points. You don't have to use them all. You don't have to use all the subpoints. Maybe there are some other ones, but these are some important ones. So user account policy. One of the things we heard about in a previous webinar was that there are a lot of user accounts out there. Some people don't even know they exist. Some people don't know if they're compromised. And defining a policy for how the accounts are created, how the rights are assigned, Making sure that the accounts involved are still relevant, especially service accounts, local administrator accounts, and I'm talking about the actual account you use when you provision a PC for the very first time. Those are some examples of accounts that just float around. They're very highly privileged, and nobody even knows what they do or what the password is or when the password was changed. So understanding what these accounts are, what the rights are, what they're for is important. And you're going to see this again later. I like to call out no local administrator rights for users, because on the technical side that can really cause problems. If people click on the dancing pig and then immediately there might be a piece of malware that's running with full authority on their system, and no questions asked, and that can be a problem. Mention passwords, especially for the service accounts again. Just define a password policy. Strength, password reuse. Password reuse includes both using the same password on multiple systems, or when it's time to change your password, just using the same one again. Password expiration. That's important for service accounts again, although you don't want your critical services to just turn off when a service account changes. As part of the password policy, you might take accounting of this and make sure that you're changing the password in a controlled manner at an appropriate time and not forgetting about that account. Secure password storage, password vaulting, another thing to put in a policy. You shouldn't have passwords in an Excel spreadsheet or a text document. Use secure storage. Data usage policy. We're going to see a little bit of a data classification as well, but this is basically just saying what data users can and cannot access. It can be as broad as do not access any data that you're not explicitly authorized to. There's a shared drive with 6 folders in it, one for accounting, one for marketing, and one for engineering, and one for IT. Someone who's in product development, as an actual engineer, shouldn't be snooping around in marketing or accounting without specific authorization. If it's not your job, don't touch it. These are some of the things that might appear in a data usage policy. It might also describe what you can do with the data once you have access to it. Can you store it on your computer? Can you transmit it to other parties? Can you put it on a thumb drive and take it home? Computer usage. Applications you can and cannot install and use. It's good to have that very strictly governed. I know it's a pain. Everyone wants to use that one extra thing. But if you can come up with a specific list of applications that each role is going to use, it's going to be a lot easier in terms of patch management, maintaining your systems, making sure that there's no funk going on. And that also applies to internet services or websites. Clearly, stay off the gambling sites and stay off the streaming media sites and stay off of the BitTorrent type applications when you're at work. Please don't. Remote access policy. We'll probably see this a little bit later as well, but it's not good to allow full network access to remote users, especially if they're on BYOD equipment or bring your own device. Someone's dialing in from a foreign network and their system has no level of assurance or confidence that it's secure. It's just as bad as having someone bring a laptop in off the street and plug it directly into your LAN. They can see everything, they can do everything. VPN users should be controlled in terms of what they can access. What I commonly see is that they're able to remote desktop into their own machines, or they can see the application server or a VDI type server, a virtual desktop type server, and that's it. So I mentioned mobile and BYOD ties into remote access, ties into VPNs. Most companies already have a remote access policy. So when it comes to mobile and BYOD, they have a foundation that they can build upon. There's a lot of buzz in the air about what goes on with mobile device management and BYOD. So take a step back, take a deep breath and say, well, we already talk about remote access a lot. How can we apply this to the newer technology? So whether it's a laptop or a cell phone, you should have a password and PIN. You should use encryption wherever available. If it is BYOD, They don't necessarily need the same level of control, say mobile device management or pulling them into the domain and enforcing antivirus and updates, but they should be limited as to what they can get to, even more so than some of the other devices before that have VPN access. Email, remote desktop, specific applications, and absolutely not for full network access. Change control, log changes and understand what they're for. Changes to service accounts, firewalls, have a documentation of what all this stuff does, and if you change it or renew it, make a note of that. If something's going to expire, no longer relevant to the business, if you can, make a note as to when you expect this credential or rule to no longer be relevant, and be sure to review it at the appointed time. Should have cycles, usually about 3 months, 6 months, to maybe a year, depending on the size of your organization. You're going to review all this stuff and make sure that what's there is understood and relevant. Software, hardware, audit, updates. This is another thing that you can put in policies and procedures and make sure it's being done on a regular basis. You can keep documentation of. And that's an inventory of all of your machines, software versions, patch levels, if there are licenses involved. Even if we're not talking about information security, just for IT management, this is very useful. Keeping a controlled environment, understanding what you have and what you don't. As for updates, automatic updates are great. If you can use a golden master run updates on imaging system and then push updates down, it's a little bit better. In terms of things that don't have automatic updates, well, if you've got an inventory of what type of software is out there, you know when you might need to manually update software as things come through. For example, my Java JRE doesn't automatically update. It tries, but it fails. So I need to keep track of that. I wish I didn't have to use Java, but I do, and so I have to keep it up to date. Document the update procedures, especially for open source and customized applications. Anyone who lives in the Linux world that runs with applications that might have been built from source, that means compiled using a number of esoteric config files and compiler flags. If you build a system and then neglect it, and then 6 months, a year later, you realize, ooh, maybe I should patch that server. And you realize, well, I built it from source. So I essentially have to redo all this development to get the application up and running. If you have good documentation as to how the system was built and what the update procedure is before it makes it out of dev and goes into prod or production, very helpful. And then further, cell phones, tablets, VoIP phones, phone systems, printers. These are other things that are notoriously unmaintained, switches, even routers. If you can, bring them into the fold. I know it's a whole pile of additional work, and these all have different methods of pulling down updates, but it's important. These are attack vectors. Vulnerability analysis. You're going to want to do a periodic scan to identify possible gaps in your patch management and configurations. Some new software might have popped up, or a system might have been installed that skated past change management and patch management, and now it's just kind of hanging out on your network. Vulnerability analysis should detect the system, allow you to figure out what it is, and hopefully flag any gaps. Another thing that this helps for is some vulnerabilities that might just kind of pop in that might be unpatched, as in nothing was provided by the vendor. Well, you'll find out about it, and hopefully you can do something with it. Another thing to do, another task to put on the line for recurrence is a daily review of logs. If you've got a SIM tool, security information management, or a centralized log collector, it's a good idea to hang out in there. And I know you might be getting a lot of logs, but with some filtering and learning what you're supposed to be looking for, especially with a SIM tool, you can set up rules to target and flag things that you know are bad. And it's good to just hang out there maybe an hour a day, see what's going on, make sure that there's nothing bad. User awareness training. iSecure has done a couple of surveys at trade shows and conventions where by far the biggest source of concern was user awareness. We'll see later when we talk about some of the technical controls that you can fill an entire screen up in a video diagram with stacks and stacks of physical controls, firewalls, secure email gateways. But if something manages to skate through that and doesn't trigger any alarms in the end user, and they click on it and they type in their confidential information into a fake website, or they install the malware that was packaged in resume.exe, that's a problem. And just with continuous user awareness training, you can have a better handle on that and hopefully avoid the accidents. So what does user awareness training entail? Periodic refreshers. I believe we heard from the MAD security folks a little bit earlier in the week. Something that they do is really nice, where a couple of times a month there could be a 5, maybe 10-minute video with a little 1 or 2 question quiz at the end. And instead of barraging people once a year with an hour or 2 of stuff that they're going to forget right after lunch, it keeps a continuous exposure to just trying to be aware of what's going on, what's good, what's bad, and hopefully a little bit of more timely information as to what's new. Another thing you can do with user awareness training is send out memos or use screensaver-based communication systems just to flash up advisories on, say, the spam of the week that's going around that people have been clicking on, or a known malicious website, or particular behavior that's happening that people need to watch out for. And, of course, sign off on the AUPs. That's really just to cover your butt and make HR and legal people happy. Separation of duties, we talked about that a little bit. Up near the top, there's a fork between who's setting the compliance goals and who is setting the methodologies that are going to be used for ensuring security, for implementing security. A little bit of a separation of duties is important if that's chief compliance officer or enlisting outside parties for auditing, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing. That helps. It keeps everyone honest. And, when we're talking about auditing, we're talking about someone that's going to go through and look at all the pages of documentations and sign-offs that have occurred from the execution of the procedures listed above. And unless someone's just outright lying, you should be assured that if you're following this process, that you're at least doing what you said you were going to do. And if the policies and procedures require more than just checking a box and require maintaining documentation, it's a lot easier to generate real documentation than fake documentation. Just do your job and fill things out, and you should be okay. Make sure you have those comprehensive lists of servers and users, and noted that passwords were changed on time. And that's what the auditors are going to be looking for, whether it's internal or external. It depends on your compliance goals. So paper trails, tracking the process of security policies. Corporate and information security departments are often autonomous branches. Or one branch might audit the functions of another. IT might audit the HR roles and make sure that the accounts that are provisioned in the system match who is actually employed at the company, and vice versa. So we just talked a lot about operating processes and procedures and defining audit processes that validate policy compliance. So we've been moving down this chain here, and then the dashed line is a flow of information. The solid lines are implementation of further process and actually defining it. Then the dotted lines define where the data is flowing. So you've got operating processes that make the policies real, and those processes involve all of the documentation of what IT is doing. That flows over to your audit processes. They're going to make sure the documentation is there and up to date and that people have been doing what they said they're going to do. And finally, those audits feed a report on compliant and non-compliant factors. So let's say we got some problems here. Things are showing up as non-compliant, or there was a breach. What do we do? Well, you kind of need to evaluate the risk associated with that non-compliant aspect, because early in the process, you're going to probably have a lot of it. So what are you going to do? Well, you need to find a path to remediation. And as I noted before, compliance doesn't necessarily apply to an externally mandated compliance. It could be internal. It could be your own process, your own confidence that things are being done right. These policies, even if they're internally defined, were intended to make your IP or your InfoSec program go and keep your organization secure. So you've got a problem. What are you going to do? You can escalate critical, systemic, or major policy issues to upper management. If you've got a serious problem, you want to go right back up to the top and explain what's going on and see what you can do about it. It might involve, some high-level changes. If it's something a little bit more nitty-gritty, as to a process that just isn't working quite right, needs some fine-tuning, or it's an accountability issue, you can usually achieve that at a lower level, with middle management, depending on the size of your organization. So we expand this diagram again. We're looking for a path to remediation. We've evaluated the risk of the non-compliant factors. We've decided, well, this one is super important. This one, maybe not so much. This one can be handled by middle management, but this one is super important, and I have no idea what to do. So that might get kicked right back up to the top. And not to say that you need to redo the entire framework, but that one aspect might have to go to the top and trickle back down through to make sure that you're fixing the issue. Now, another aspect with all of this stuff that's going on is automation. As your organization grows and as you have more procedures that need to happen, well, you can do a lot of them manually. If everyone has their checklists and when they're not working on new stuff, they have their process that they go through. And when a larger organization defines roles for systems administrators, they're going to have a lot of very specific things to do. That's a process of management or an organization. They're not going to be floating around doing whatever they need to. Maybe I'll update a server on Tuesday and make a call on Wednesday. There's a schedule, and hopefully, if they're in the trenches, it's getting done. GRC tools, governance, regulatory, and or governance, risk, and compliance tools can help this out. Now, I ask kind of a flip question here: is what is a good GRC tool? I really don't know. I've been looking for a couple of years. Maybe some other folks can flag something that they use. But what I have found is that most GRC tools are targeted for very large organizations. Many are tied to business intelligence or analytic tools, where GRC is a small component of this, massive type of SAP system. So in terms of just managing an InfoSec program, that makes it a little bit of a challenge. Every once in a while I look around, I've seen IBM Open Pages, which just goes right back to business intelligence. There are a few other ones. You can use QRadar with plugins for vulnerability management, asset management, risk management. They have a risk assessment tool. But they don't really have a ticketing tool, which is important for GRC. You need to put out a method for flagging tasks, making sure they're done, getting a response, and storing the results. So if anyone has a GRC tool that they like, let us know. We'll definitely take a look at it and be happy with that. But GRC to me right now is still a little bit of pie in the sky. Regardless, all the stuff we talked about before, it's important to have a process to automate before trying to automate it. You could go out and find the first GRC tool you had that was highly rated and turn it on, and it's going to be a blank slate. What are you going to do? Okay, well, I'm going to turn on this PCI compliance plugin. it doesn't know anything about your organization. So it's a steep learning curve to get that stuff plugged in. If you've already learned yourself about your organization, have a process, have documentation, it should be not a trivial step, but an attainable step to kick it up a notch and actually add some automation to your process. So automate the assignment of operating tasks and provide a repository for documentation. Automate the assignment of audit tasks and repo those documents as well. Automate the collection of compliance reports. You've got all of these things that people are checking off. It's going to filter up the chain. Hopefully at the end you've got one guy that has a checkbox next to a green smiley face and you're happy. But in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of filtering up the chain of bits and pieces that need to work together. Another thing you might be able to do is formalize the risk and exposure metrics. A lot of vulnerability analysis tools will use various schemes to say whether or not a system is vulnerable and how vulnerable it is. That's just talking about looking at a host, for example. And it's going to assign a risk based on whether it's a root exploit, whether it's an authenticated exploit, whether it's a remote exploit, whether or not it results in data leakage or total system compromise, and you could get a risk rating anywhere from 10 to 100,000 for a host, depending on which scale you use. That's hard to deal with because it might tell you what that individual host is doing, but it has no relevance to you. It might say it's remotely accessible or remotely exploitable, but unless that system is actually out on the internet, the risk isn't all it's cracked up to be. Sure, you don't want machines with remote exploits hanging out on your LAN, but it's much more critical if a host with a remote exploit is hanging out on your internet connection. So that might be a criteria. Sure, it's a remotely exploitable resource, but it's not exposed. It might be an asset that provides a simple function, but is not business critical, in that if it goes down, it's not going to paralyze your business. You might not be able to print in one department for an afternoon, but not that bad. You might not be able to read your HR documents for an afternoon, but not that bad. Or it might be business critical. It might be your e-commerce server. Not that people stole data, but if it got taken down or died for some reason, that's a serious problem. Your whole business is paralyzed. Along the same lines, what type of data is on that? Again, if it's your e-commerce server or an HR server or something containing strategic information or design plans for whatever it is that your company does, that's a lot more critical than if someone compromises a system that's just hosting HR policies for people to read, and that's it. So you can use a number of factors, and as you characterize your assets and characterize the risks that are involved, you can get a little bit of a better clue as to what the problems are and how critical they are. You still have to do some level of manual evaluation, as you tune the system. But ultimately, it's nice to be able to put some factors together to help clue you into the right direction, especially if you're operating at a very large scale. So one last comment about the framework is the way this diagram was laid out. As you go from the upper left kind of down to the lower right, you can see that your information security maturity is increasing. Now, there's a few models out there that go from reactive to compliant to managed to optimized and things like that. And I'm not going to reference any of those in detail, but that's generally what we're looking at here. So, like I said, enough about the management and policy and frameworks. Let's look at some of the technology side. Like I said, this is two presentations kind of glued together. When I found out that I had to cover for Tom, I figured that I'd add something new to something I already had, and ended up making it twice as large. So off we go. This presentation started with a lot of just technical controls, but I figured it was important to talk about policy and procedure as well. But remember, we saw this diagram at the very beginning. Here's an elemental state. You've got assets, and you have a firewall. Some things that can be added on to that. An advanced next generation firewall, or UTM as it's sometimes called. That can provide in one central place antivirus, network-based antivirus, IPS, URL filtering. URL filtering is important beyond just keeping people off of porn sites and gambling sites while they're at work. URL filtering, if tied into a good device and a good URL database, can also flag malware sites and phishing sites and attack sites. Places that people are being directed to that are directly threatening to. Another good one is a secure email gateway. We're talking about anti-spam here. Beyond anti-spam, there's also the ability to filter out at another layer, at the email layer, these phishing attacks that are coming in, the URLs that are linking to fake sites, the attachments that are coming through the resume.exe that sometimes ends up in emails, or malicious PDFs, attachments, zip files. A good secure email gateway is going to be able to filter those things out. You still need to be aware of what's coming through, but this is another line of defense. Of course, host-based antivirus and IPS, anti-malware solutions. In terms of blacklisting malicious code, it's a little bit of an issue because there's a lot more malware that's being generated versus actually legitimate applications. We'll see a little bit more about this later. Host-based IPS and AV, it's a basic checkbox. It's important. If you don't have it, you should. It's not going to save you from everything, but it's definitely important. Like I said, software updates. We talked about this in policies and procedures. You absolutely need to run your software updates. If you're not doing that, you're absolutely vulnerable. There are many, many exploits in Java, in browsers, in Flash, in Office. We hear about them all the time. If you're not keeping up on that, even beyond zero-day attacks, there could be things from a month or a year ago that are still relevant, and you can still have a problem with them. I also mentioned this before, no local administrator rights for users. If you click on that malware or do that sketchy thing and you're running with a full administrator account, that's a problem. And I'm talking about people who log in and use privileged accounts every day. You might say, oh, well, they need to install software, they need to change settings, they need to run updates. Perhaps, but for their day-to-day activities, they should be using a normal user-level account. In order to help the folks that need the elevated privileges, you can issue a second account for them. Let's say my username is kevin.wilkins on the domain. You can also create kevin.wilkins.elite as a separate username and give that one the elevated privileges. That way, if I decide that I need to install a package or run an update or change a setting, at least in Windows 7 and beyond, I can right-click on the application I need to use and say run as administrator, or the system will challenge me right away and say, well, you can't do that. Give me credentials of someone who can. You rub your hands together and you say, oh, well, I can. And you type in kevin.wilkins.elite and then your super secret password, and then it does the thing that you're looking to do. But it doesn't happen automatically. So it slows you down a little bit, but also slows down the bad guys. So we talked about that a little bit. I'm going to keep building out these diagrams as we go. We can see I upgraded my stateful firewall to next gen. I added a secure email gateway, and I also put AV IPS software updates down at the general user level. We talked about all these before: policies, procedures, governance, passwords, user accounts, data, computer usage, remote access, BYOD, change control, vulnerability analysis, security log analysis. As you build out your security structure, you can fit all these in. Segmentation. If everyone's running on a flat network, and I've even seen DMZs that aren't really DMZs, there are servers, there are users, there are different departments, there are servers serving different departments, all kind of commingled together. As your organization grows, if you can start segmenting out different VLANs of different operating groups and the assets, the resources that they need to access, this helps a lot. First of all, if one department has something happen, hopefully whatever happened to them is contained within that security zone and doesn't get out. Worms or some sort of malware that's prevalent through a department. Hopefully you can keep it contained. Then the other aspect is in terms of engineers, like I said, snooping into the affairs of your accounting department. This segmentation, breaking up into different VLANs, setting up firewall rules between an engineering PC and accounting PCs, or an engineering PC and an accounting server, will help. A concept of least privilege. Or turn it around. Let's say an accountant says, oh, I don't like the accountancy. I'd rather be a spy. I'm going to take all the data from the engineering department and sell it. Well, guess what? You're an accountant. You can buy and sell and pay people's payroll and make sure that money isn't leaving the company, but you can't steal engineering documents. It's in a different department, different rules. It's segmented. And with the central firewall, some VLAN tagging, some zone-to-zone rules, you can accomplish this. And so here we go. Let's break everyone out. IT operators, HR, finance, executives, general users, these all might have different roles, either accessing each other or accessing the internet. By breaking them out, you can define these rules very granularly. So we're going to burn through some other aspects of things you can add. Patch management systems, we mentioned this at least twice now, making sure that your systems are up to date. If you have a patch management system, you just made it a lot easier. So you've got Office, you've got Windows, you've got Flash, you've got Java, you've got browsers, to name a few. A patch management system will help these out a lot. Hopefully they can also cover some of your custom applications, but the applications that interact with the internet are the most critical ones. Adobe Acrobat is another one to add to that. Also useful for maintaining consistency on the machines within your environment. So if you've got Joe down the hall running version 1 of an application, then you've got Mary on the other side of the hall running version 2 of an application, they might call the help desk with completely different problems, and it's related to the version of the code that they're running. If you can get everyone running the same code, you only have one question to answer twice, and that makes it a lot easier. So application whitelisting, I mentioned some of the drawbacks of standard host-based security. If you've got a good patch management system, if you've got consistency going on in your environment, application whitelisting becomes plausible. And application whitelisting basically means that I'm not going to look for things that are bad. I'm going to look for things that are good. I'm going to assume everything is bad unless I've specifically flagged it as a known application within my environment. I'm not going to run it. And this makes it so that all the polymorphic and encrypted and zero-day malware that's floating out in the internet all the time just won't run. It doesn't matter if there's no signature for it to be flagged as a malware. We know it's not good, so we're not going to run it. I mentioned log management in your policies a little bit. So having a good SIM, centralized logging, helps in forensics and troubleshooting. Instead of having to connect to 50, a dozen, or even just a small handful of machines to do troubleshooting and forensics, all the logs are in the same place. One interface, you can sort and search for what you want. Correlation rules, threat intelligence feeds, can alarm on things that the servers and routers and firewalls are saying that might be relevant to your security posture, correlate that together. Report on trending, highlight anomalies. All of these are very good things. And one other comment about SIM that's not in here is if a server is compromised, one of the things that a hacker will often do is try and scrub the logs from the server that they were even there. If that server is blasting out logs in real time to be stored in a different location, it's a lot harder to destroy those logs. You have a copy of it that's hanging out someplace else, and you're able to then run your forensics on that and figure out what happened. Web App Firewall, or WAF, this is a specialized firewall. This characterizes how people are using your web applications, whether it's an e-commerce site or just something very simple with a couple of forms. A WAF can characterize what is normal. It can also identify malicious behaviors, bots, people scanning, people probing, crawling your site, trying to look for corners that you don't want seen. WAFs can flag this stuff and block it. I've seen these available as both premise-based and cloud-based solutions. I haven't mentioned any products yet. Imperv is a good example. There's Encapsula. Encapsula is very easy to set up. A couple of DNS changes and a firewall rule on your website to only accept inbound connections from the Encapsula cloud servers. And you've added this capability. Change the DNS for your website to point to Encapsula and send Encapsula to your website. Done. Database Access Management, or DAM. This is going to stay between your web portal and your database servers, or if you have got database servers that are running internal SAP, business intelligence, things like that, you can put a database access manager there as well. Again, it's characterizing the typical types of traffic. You might see individual queries from a website that says, authenticate this user, buy that thing, fill up a shopping cart, empty a shopping cart. These are normal behaviors. Commands to say enumerate all the users in the system, or pretend to be an SA instead of the actual website user, delete a user, delete a table. These are things that you should never see coming from your web server. And if you've characterized what goes on between the two of them, a database access manager will be able to filter out the bad stuff and flag it as malicious and only allow the good stuff to come through. Another thing it does is dealing with database administrators. You might have some limited auditing, just making sure that nothing crazy is going on with your web server. But then if your database administrator connects, you might audit every single thing that he does, because he has access to everything, unrestricted. You have to let your database administrator do that. But you're going to have enhanced auditing of what he does. Or you might say that, okay, great, you can connect as an SA, but only from a specific zone on the network and a specific machine. You can't do that from home or via VPN. Advanced malware detection, we mentioned whitelisting, we mentioned host-based security. This is very often using sandboxes to run an application and see what it does, look at the behaviors, see if it's trying to install a keyboard logger. You might have the most malicious, most well-encrypted software in the world, but when you click on it, the first thing it tries to do is install a keylogger, inject itself into your keyboard driver or your network driver. Well, gee, you probably don't want that. Probably don't want it writing to different parts of the registry than might be assigned for that application. You can also watch for command and control and phone home activity. There are a couple of ways to do advanced malware detection. You can do it on the host, you can do it on the network. This most relates to the network side, but you can look for that phone home activity. A lot of these advanced malware detection appliances can see you calling home and flag it as malicious. NAC, network access control. People just plugging their computers into the network, BYOD or something from home. Or someone who snuck in and is trying to do something nasty with network access control. You can stop that. There's good old-fashioned 802.1x. There are some newer ways to do it, involved in detecting that there's a new node on the network, characterizing it. Is it on the domain? Is it patched? Can I identify it? Can I control it? What software is installed? What's it doing? And then based on a device's characteristics and behaviors, decide how you're going to treat it. Are you going to put it in a quarantine zone? Are you going to just block it from getting to certain assets? Are you going to give it full reign? Network access control on a higher order can help prevent that. So moving through speed, we're almost at 50 slides in 50 minutes. So that's how we roll. We filled out this this whole structure of technological controls as well. Next-gen firewall, like Palo Alto Networks, is a good one. Advanced malware detection, FireEye is something we also see a lot of. There's also Wildfire built into Palo Alto Networks. Secure email gateways, we've got Proofpoint is a good example of that. Web app firewall, I mentioned Imperva, database access manager, Imperva and IBM Guardium are both examples of that. Security information event management, here's good old QRadar, network access control, Forescout, password and user policies. It's a lot of manual work, but file access and monitoring control, Varonis is a good example of that. Vulnerability scanning, good example of that is Nexpose from Rapid7. I believe we heard. Sophos, BigFix from IBM are examples. AV, IPS, Sophos again, software updates, patch management. And then segmentation, VLANs, that's a matter of policy and having a good firewall. So that's basically what I wanted to go through. As I said, that was a lot. I know Paul had a few statements he wanted to make. If we can fit in a couple of questions, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll hang out a little bit after the hour to field questions. Or we can take them offline. Again, my name is Kevin Wilkins. I'm the CTO here at iSecure. Paul Robinson, who has been our Master of Ceremonies, is the Director of Business Development. And you can also reach Donna Smith. She was the event organizer. If you call into the main desk, she'll probably be the one that answers. And all of us would be happy to field questions or start directing you into the right direction. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it back to Paul and let him talk for a while. All right. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Great presentation. Greatly appreciated. It was definitely heavy and rich in content, and that's kind of, as Kevin says, you know, tongue-in-cheek wise, that's kind of how we roll here at iSecure. We're making sure that we're giving you the best possible content and information that we possibly can give to you. So what I would like to do is there are a couple of questions that are out there. So Kevin, why don't we hit these questions first, and then I'll be able to close. Things out. So the first question is DLP, and your thoughts on that as far as being a key component to a defense in-depth strategy that an organization would have.
Okay. Well, there's a question. One of the first things that's very important is to characterize where your data is and what you're worried about. In terms of data loss protection, sure, you can put a device in line on your network that tries to decrypt channels and look for things going through email or web or FTP that look sensitive. A DLP solution might be able to scan your shared drives for structured and unstructured data, flag things that you think are important, and then tell you if it goes out of the network. But in terms of really controlling your data, if you do a lot of the other things we talked about, making sure that people aren't getting to resources that are on the internet and are not necessarily for a business purpose, if you're blocking file transfers except for using an authorized file sharing utility that's auditable. You can get pretty far with that. I mentioned Varonis is another example that can scan your unstructured data, such as your shared drives, looking for things that look like credit card numbers or keywords, and tell you what files contain those pieces of data. It can tell you who has access to those pieces of data. So just controlling, and understanding what you have in your environment is a very big step forward. If you're not doing that, if you just drop a magic box in line, back here somewhere between your firewall and your malware detection or on your email server, you're not necessarily going to get the biggest bang for the buck than if you would characterize your data, understood where it was, and put your own partitions around it internally. Sure, you could get DLP, but unconfigured, it's just going to look for credit card numbers and SSNs and a few other things, and it's even going to be challenging to make sure that isn't going through encrypted channels just by restricting the flow of data in general and understanding where your data is. You can get a big advantage out of that.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on that as well, kind of the way that we have we've been able to work with a DLP solution or whatnot. There are a lot of organizations or manufacturers that do claim, okay, we are a DLP solution, and there really isn't one in our portfolio that we've even brought in here to test. Just from the fact of what Kevin had just mentioned, it's a very detailed issue and matter to deal with. So I hear what you're saying, Kevin. Appreciate that. There is another question that came in here, and it's a little lengthy, but stay with me on this, Kevin. So it says, your presentation centers around layered security and detective controls, which are commonly represented as defense in depth. My understanding of the definition of defense in depth is to be able to respond well to new conditions. IT security officers are currently focusing on threat delay and rapid notification and response. How are companies like yours positioning yourselves to provide solutions that address the handling of new security conditions that a system is not prepared for?
All right. Well, yeah, detection is important. The first thing that I talked about was diligence and process, and just making sure that you're doing what you can that you know about. Of course, patching and passwords and things like that are putting your fingers in the dam, so to speak. In terms of new threats that are coming up, well, you just have to be aware of what's out there. Detective controls, to detect something early is definitely important. A SIM can help with that. Having some tools around can help with that. Understanding your environment can absolutely help with that. In terms of detecting something that happened. Well, if you're continuing to educate yourself as to different ways that hackers are getting into your system, and you're using the technical aspects that you have and reviewing what they're telling you, you can get a lot further. The scarlet letter of the year has been the target breach, and for example, beyond a lot of these segmentation and physical and technical controls that were listed in this presentation that the target might or may not have had, they actually did have FireEye as advanced malware detection that saw the download and installation of some of the malware that went into the target system, and saw a lot of the callbacks. They're going back from target systems to other systems that were collecting the data. And the FireEye system logged that and alerted on it. And anecdotally, there was some indication that it was seen when it was relevant and early on in the incident, but whether it was just one leaf fluttering in a blizzard, or they, for whatever reason, it was disregarded, and the breach was allowed to continue unimpeded for quite some time. So these tools can be helpful, but throttling out the noise, understanding your environment, and just trying to be as aware as you can of what's going on is critical.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think to kind of touch on that as well, it's the biggest concern. I think we touched on it with a couple of the presentations that we've had is the user community and how they're accessing it. And with the question I was asked, I think you hit it right on the head. It's hard to produce technology or solutions fast enough to keep up with the threats and vulnerabilities that are out there today. I think it's just being able to build a culture of security awareness, not only from a physical perspective like we have, where we say, hey, lock your desk, or if you have an office, lock your office, and things like that, but also from a cyber perspective and being able to be savvy enough to figure out when a threat or a vulnerability is taking place, or if you have sensitive data on a corporate asset, how to treat that, or if you have it on a personal asset, how to treat that. And I think that's the best way to keep up with things. So that's a great question and great response, Kevin. I think that's great. We did have a follow-up from the question in regards to DLP that it seems like the next generation of DLP tools that are out here, according to the person who asked the question, do have some of the capabilities and the competencies to do functionality. So I'd actually ask if they could bring that offline to us and talk about that, because it's something that I know internally here we've kind of struggled with to find.
Yes.
So,
Paul, if I could just comment on that real quick.
yes.
If anyone is out there, any of our customers or partners, or anyone who just wants to have a chat, we love talking about security all day. That's what we do. And although we try to get our fingers into a whole lot of stuff, part of what we do is we test and evaluate a lot of the technologies that are out there. Some of the ones we like better and find to be good solutions are some of the ones that we bring out on the table and put on our line card. But there's a lot of other ones that either we didn't quite see a market for, it's good technology, but not really something we wanted to carry at the time, or something we looked at that was kind of halfway there in terms of technology, but not quite baked. That would be put on the side for a little while and we'll look at it again. So if anyone out there wants to say, hey guys, have you heard about this? We'll certainly spend a little bit of time looking at it and talk to you about what it does. If it's something new, something that we don't necessarily carry or even have heard of, but you want a second opinion as to whether or not this technology can help you, we will absolutely talk to you about that, and we'd love to hear from you.
Great, excellent. And I believe that is it for the questions right now. I don't see any more, so I'm going to close it out. And again, thank you, Kevin, so much for the presentation, and thank you, everybody. I know we went a little bit over 12 o'clock here. Thank you for your participation in the webinar series. Kind of our philosophy when it comes to getting education out for security is doing events like this. So we'll have quarterly webinar series that will get information to you on. For those of you, again, who are in the Western New York, upstate New York region, we are having an event in August, kind of similar to this, but only live at the Buffalo Art Gallery, I believe it's at, and you'll be getting some more information on that. We have some events that are scheduled for more downstate from us in our Connecticut region. So if you're in the New York City, Boston area, you'll get some information on the Connecticut events that we have here. And we greatly appreciate it. We'd love to have the opportunity to talk more with you offline about things that we do and services that we're able to provide. Kind of two things that we say when we talk to our customer base, and it's this: it's that if there, a win for us is not for you to call us up and say, hey, we want to buy the 10 things that you talked about today. While that would be great and all, that's not the way that we do business here. We're very consultative, very much in discussions with folks as far as how to plan things out. As you can see, we have a framework that we go by to make sure that folks are attacking things the way they need to. So a win for us would be that if you have your whiteboard on your table or on your wall, and you are looking for security projects that you need help with, that we would be one of the first calls that you would make, and again, taking you through the framework and seeing how things fit. The second thing is that we know that some folks are already aligned with strategically with information security partners, or you like to keep things in-house. Totally understandable as well. We might have some students on the line also that really aren't in the field yet, but we do ask that if you do have conversations with other security professionals in the industry and you think that maybe they could benefit from our framework and our methodology of how we deal with information security, just let them know about us. That'd be great, greatly appreciated. So that's my quote-unquote pitch for the end of the webinar week, and you should be getting some trinkets in the mail soon from our marketing team. Thanking you for joining the webinar. You'll probably get some follow-up calls from us as well. And again, greatly, greatly appreciate the attendance and the way that you guys have interacted with our presenters as well, and wish you a great weekend, and look forward to speaking with you all soon. Take care.